Hey everybody, welcome back. Time for another Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. Once again, we return to Dublin Comic Con and a couple interviews done by Eoin McCauley of Pulse College. Today we focus on actors who really excel at voiceover work. Our good friend Susan Eisenberg is interviewed by Eoin, the animated Amazon herself, Wonder Woman. Great conversation with Eoin. And then Jess Nesling will be on. Jess is a wonderful UK voiceover actor who's done great work on things like Warhammer and other great video games and animation work, as well as on-camera work and stage work as well. So they're the principals of today's interviews from Dublin Comic Con last March with Eoin McCauley on today's Word Balloon. This episode of Word Balloon is brought to you by Pulse College. Pulse College has 3 decades of a proven track record delivering professional industry training courses in audio, music, film, games, and animation. Since 1991, Pulse has received international recognition for both its vocational and practical-driven academic courses. All courses are designed and delivered by experienced industry professionals and offer cutting-edge blends of academic perspectives fused with practical skill sets in the areas of film, music, games, and animation. This, combined with the unique teaching and learning environment of the iconic Windmill Lane recording studios, makes world-class industry education attainable. Learners from around the world can join in a variety of short courses offered remotely via Zoom in the fields of sequential art and design, 2D animation, 3D animation, character design, and game environments. For more details, visit pulsecollege.com. Word Balloon is brought to you by AlexRossArt.com. Alex is doing a CGC Signature Series signing opportunity for fans. You can send in your stuff to Alex to sign at cgc.com for details. Hurry though, the offer ends May 5th. Word Balloon is also brought to you by my patrons, the League of Word Balloon listeners, via Patreon, patreon.com/wordballoon. If you could subscribe to Word Balloon, it would really be greatly appreciated. Took a bit of a financial hit this year and could really use your help. If you enjoy the content I provide every week here at Word Balloon on audio and video, you could really help me out by subscribing to Word Balloon for the price of a comic book. Can you spare $5 a month? Can you spare even $1 a month? If you can, if you think the content is worth your time, it would be great. Patreon.com/wordballoon. Thank you, League of Word Balloon listeners. Let's start things off with the animated Amazon herself, my good friend Susan Eisenberg and Eoin McCauley on today's Word Balloon.
Okay, so thank you so much, Susan, for joining us here today at Dublin Comic Con in March 2023 edition. Really appreciate you taking the time out and so early in the morning as well for you. So there's a time difference. Really appreciate you coming in on Saturday, no less.
I wouldn't do it for just anybody. It's Dublin Comic Con I'm doing it for.
It's the look of the Irish, you know. That's a
100%. And it's not that early here. It's 9 in the morning. So it's not like
that's early for us, believe me. Like but that's enough of the stereotypes here. I already have a paddy cap on. We can't have any more. Someone hand me a Guinness and we've gone the full hog.
I think it's hysterical. Well, first of all, I love the hat. I think the cap looks amazing on you. Just FYI.
Thank you. This is a new edition, and I was talking to the main organisers. They don't know whether it was going to make or break for me. I'm keeping it. We have one more in the audience, so yeah, this is it. We're all living up to the St. Patrick's Day.
Why not?
Of course, if we don't do it, it's like you go to Scotland, you expect them to wear kilts. You go to Ireland, you're going to expect a paddy cap.
Absolutely. And some Guinness.
Plenty of Guinness. Well, literally, we're just down the river from the Guinness factory. If I hang my head out the window, we can see. That's how typically Irish we are right now.
Love it. I love it.
But listen, so thank you so much again, and hopefully we'll see you over here in a future show as well. So that's the plan, the hope, because I think some of your fellow Justice Leaguers had already arrived here as well. So we have a long-standing tradition. So thanks again, and just to kick things off, first of all, I'm a huge Justice League and Justice League Unlimited fan myself. The series was phenomenal, and I know you worked with the great Andrea Romano as well, and what was that experience like? Just to begin with, because like anytime I'm watching any of the DVD extras and any of the DCAU material, and we also had a fellow Irishman, Jason O'Mara, who did some of the newer animated material for the DCAU films. He worked with Andrea as well, and I was just curious, like your experience, like working with Andrea. Is she semi-retired now, or is she still active? Or?
Yeah, no, she's mostly retired now. I mean, talk about a woman who deserves a rest. Pretty much everything you watch on television was directed by her and cast by her. So it's not only that she directed the performances, it's also that she found the performers. These casts, these magical casts, she created those along with Bruce Timm or whomever she's working with. But it was extraordinary. It's like starting at the top, it's having the best of the best in the very beginning of your career. And then hopefully you try to recreate that over and over and over again. But that was magical, having her as my voice director and discovering Diana with her, because she helped me. Same with Bruce. I had a picture. Bruce gave me a picture of Diana, so I knew what she was going to look like. And then Andrea really helped me find the voice of Diana, because she said very early on, the two things you have to remember always are you have to always bring the princess quality to her, and you always have to bring the warrior quality to her. And those two things have to coexist all the time. So if you lose one, it doesn't work. You can't lose either one. And she would always remind me, I wouldn't lose the princess all that often, but once in a while I lost the warrior. And she'd be like, toughen it up. So yeah, it was just glorious having her as, my mentor. She held my hand the whole way through the series.
Oh, that's extraordinary. Yeah, it really is. Like anytime, like even The Simpsons in the credits, you'll see Andrea will pop up as well. Like
everything
I've ever watched growing up on TV is like Andrea. I'm like, she's a genius. She really
is a genius. She is a genius. I mean, that word's thrown around quite a bit, but she truly is. And she's also, she was an actor, so she knows how to talk to actors. She knows what the process is like, the fear sometimes, the insecurities. I can't say enough good things about her. She's phenomenal.
And of course, back to you as well with your performance with Wonder Woman. Just before we can get into that, with regards to the character, did you have much in the way, like were you a fan growing up, or did you come to the character later after performing? What was your connection with Wonder Woman before pre-Justice League?
Well, I think I always thought she was fabulous because, I grew up with Linda Carter and she was fabulous. But I wasn't entrenched in that world. I have 3 older sisters. So I was watching American soap operas, so that was my world. And so once I got the job, I made it my mission to, take a deep dive into the universe and try to I'm still figuring it out. I got to be honest. I'm still figuring it out. The canon, the not canon. I mean, it's confusing to somebody on the outside. Yep. But I've had a lot of people say, take my hand. I'm going to tell you what to read. I'm going to show you what to do. So I've tried to educate myself. But no, that wasn't daunting, because it wasn't like I was, I'd grown up with Linda's picture on my wall or anything like that. And it wasn't as if Bruce said to me, we wanted you to do Linda Carter. It was like a whole new thing that we could all discover together. So that part wasn't intimidating.
And have you ever had, the opportunity, or would you, have an idea to contribute to the character beyond acting or voice acting, like in terms of writing? Because I know they just announced Tom King as the new author for Wonder Woman ongoing. Has DC, I know J.M. DeMatteis as well, has done a great Justice League animated comic series. Would you have any interest in perhaps, like, is there a Wonder Woman story in you, perhaps like a script or anything that you would like to explore?
wait, is that someone knocking at my door? It's opportunity. Hold on. No one's approached me yet. I don't think people see me as that. If I'll be honest. I mean, I just keep hoping they see me as Wonder Woman over there at DC and Warner Brothers. That I'd be blown away if I got to write something or contribute it in any way. But for now, I think I'm going to let the experts handle the writing, like Tom. I mean, Tom and I were, tweeting back and forth to each other once he announced it. He calls me Wonder Nerd. I'm a huge fan of his. I mean, he's the best. So I'll just be like all the other fans and waiting to see what he creates. But I'll be excited to see what he creates because he's just so talented.
Awesome. And the opportunity then, when it was that you were cast as Wonder Woman, how did that go about? Like, did you know you were auditioning for Wonder Woman when you went in for the role? Okay, so was that intimidating? Down, you're like, okay, this is Wonder Woman. Because I suppose then you're left wondering how to approach that. Did you ever consider like going full on Shakespeare? In Shakespeare in the Park with the approach.
I think that I don't even remember if the first audition we were told it was Wonder Woman, but we had callbacks at Warner Brothers. So we had to get into our cars and drive to our callbacks and meet Bruce Timm and meet Andrea Romano. And that was scary. And I remember my agent, I remember so vividly, he was calling me and he said, okay, it's for Wonder Woman and just go and get it, Susan. Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. You sit back and, have a cup of coffee and I'll just go get it. I remember the audition very vividly. I don't think I went full Shakespeare, although that would have been lovely. I just think I tried to bring a certain elegance, I think, to the character because of the fact that she was a princess. And then I tried my best to sound like an Amazonian princess warrior, So I just tried to bring both those things. And they gave me a few notes, they directed me a little bit and I did it again. And then I drove home and just thought, okay, I did what I wanted to do. Most times actors don't have that experience. You're driving home thinking, oh, shoot, I should have done this or I should have done that. You're kicking yourself. I didn't feel that when I drove away. I felt like I gave it my best and let the best woman win. That's what I figured.
Oh, amazing. And throughout the series then, I suppose this is probably a typical question you've gotten maybe 1,000,001 times, but I'm going to ask it 1,000,002. But with any particular arcs or episodes or stories that's kind of stood out to you in the series that really, that's rates among your favorite? I know that's always a tricky question to ask any, as a performer, like what's your favorite and stuff. It's like to a parent, what's your favorite? Yeah, exactly.
There are a bunch that I always talk about because for whatever reason, they stand out to me. They have a special place in my heart. Maid of Honor was just, a lovely thing to play because I played a mentor, like an older, more experienced woman, as opposed to when I first came on the show. And it was literally Paradise Lost, lost. But I loved this little piggy, because that, even though that doesn't feature me so much, it features an aspect of the character that I loved, which was she got to be like a little devil and flirty with Batman, with Kevin the great Kevin Conroy. And so that was another aspect. Anytime I could play something a little bit different to her and something that made her just pushed her out of the boundary a little bit, I loved doing that. And that one I got to do. The Once and Future Thing, written by Dwayne McDuffie, that I got to have a little bit more humor, which I loved. Like I said, anytime I got to be flirty, humorous, angry, I got to do that a lot. But, it was just fun to do another aspect of her. So this little piggy, especially the singing part, which obviously I'm not in, but Kevin, we had a running gag where whenever we were at cons together, he would always break into song. Am I blue? And I'd pretend to be, just horrified by the display, but secretly loving every second of it. And, it was just sweet. It was just dear. So, those are the three that jump out. But if you gave me 2 more minutes, I'd have about 5 more, because, look at that writing team. Like you mentioned, JM, Dwayne McDuffie, Rich Fogel, they were the writers and directors were the creme de la creme. So, we got to Paul Dini, who wrote this little piggy. I mean, you got to say these words of these magicians. So there's an endless, group of episodes I loved, but those are the ones that jump out in my head.
And it's really like for many, you all the definitive Wonder Woman as well. That Wonder Woman is definitive, like, and I can see like nods of agreements as well from the group here onto that, because it's like for me, like the Linda Carter, like of course is always going to be like to me Wonder Woman, but that wasn't the Wonder Woman I grew up with as well, And then when you even look at it in terms of the more modern films and such, like the body of work you leave in the character is the most extensive when you look at it, and the story arcs, and even you mentioned the relationship between Wonder Woman and Batman was probably the most defined within that series, and that inspired, they kind of alluded to more within the live action material later on then, but you can see the genesis of it. And
you even see some fans made screenshots from the film and from the animated series. I mean, the fan art is just stunning and fabulous. And I think that it was just alluded to, though. It never, and that's what I loved about it. It wasn't this deep arc of romance. It was the occasional flirtation, the sweetness, the I know you, you know me, trying to, penetrate that tough facade that Batman had, having his number a little bit, and he knew it. I loved playing every second of it. And there wasn't much, but it was just delightful playing that. And, whereas with Shayera and Green Lantern, that was a real love story. Like that had every beat in that love story, in that arc. Ours, wasn't fully developed. Maybe if the adventure had continued, maybe it would have been. But
there was some back, I'd say it must be about maybe nearly 10 years or so, they did attempt comic book spin-offs, and they had a fun one with the Batman Beyond series where the Justice Lords, and I think Diana ends up with the Justice Lord Batman. I think that's how they kind of tied up. Again, as you said, with how canon works, I need a map here and try and figure it out. But it was fun that, the show was like, a good art never talks down to an audience. It's there, it's good story, and everyone can come to it then and go, oh yeah, this, and they like, and then future generations can come in and add something like a tie-in novel or a comic book, and that's all because of the work you guys laid down in the original source material. And of course, sincere condolences as well with the passing of Kevin as well. The whole chemistry of the whole Justice League were as an ensemble, you guys were magnificent. And at conventions, I saw you at the reunion in New York, and you were just amazing on stage. And Kevin was a real friend to the show as well. He actually, helped this show expand, and he took a chance coming over here about 8 years ago now, or 9 years ago, on the 10th anniversary. So, again, of course, condolences, and it was the team, and hopefully, with the likes of Phil Lamar, Carl Lumley, and Mike Rosenberg, many others, that you get the chance as well to come back as well. We hope we get to see more from the team, even if it's at conventions and such as well, because the fan base always turn out when you guys do. I know John Suttress from Word Balloon. I think you know John as well.
Oh yes, of course I do.
He's fantastic for arranging the live reads at conventions. You know, I love how he just like he's probably like the coolest nerd I know. You know, he's like with that radio background, but then his wealth of knowledge with it, and he's been such a great spokesman. And I always look forward to when, you know, if you're at a convention, he's recording off you on the podcast. Those conversations have always been amazing as well.
Thank you so much for saying all of that, for the condolences, for all of that. It's very sweet. Thank you. Yeah, I think we got exceedingly lucky with our group. You know, we see each other. We all got together after Kevin passed and toasted him, and it was, you know, so sweet. And I think that's Andrea putting all of us together in a room. And you know, when you talked about the legacy of the show, and I think that's the writers, you know, and I'd love to take credit for it, but I think that the writers were fans of the genre themselves. They appreciated the genre and they respect the genre. And so they, like you say, there was never a condescension with the fans. It was always respect. And I think the fans, that's why they're still there. That's why they're still, you know, watching the show. And when I meet people at cons, it's a father-daughter. It's a mom and a son. And I'm meeting generations because, like you said, for some of the fan base, their exposure, their introduction to these DC characters was through Justice League and Unlimited. So, you know, that's a beautiful thing to carry through, you know, to carry with us all. You know, we've all carried that with us, that we were part of somebody's childhood. You know, that's how lucky we are.
Amazing. Okay, I just want to throw it now. Does anyone have any questions? I want to do Q&A. Okay, cool. Yeah. So if anyone has any questions, what I'll say is if you want to come up, anyone has any questions, just come up a little bit closer then as well. I would just before we began recording, I was saying about my friend Anto trying to battle.
Yeah. Did he get up there?
He managed to get up, but he's gotten shy now. We see Anto, you know, no hiding there.
I can't see him, so he doesn't have to be shy.
You see, she can't see. The camera doesn't point that way, Anto. He'll kill me later, he will. But we have this gentleman. Do you want to come down here and ask anything? Yeah, go ahead. I'm just going to hand over. Go ahead.
Oh.
Hi, Susan. How are you?
Hey,
nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I just have a very quick question. I would like to know, how was this transition between series, TV to Injustice game?
It's a great question. It was a challenge. You know, I wasn't used to playing Wonder Woman. Well, games are very different than animation anyway. So you have that. You know, when we did Justice League, we were all together in a room. It was a huge room, and just we would do rehearsals all together, and all the guest stars would be there. So it was, you know, once you got over the shock of that you were sitting next to Mark Hamill or, you know, Alfred Molina, it was just, you relaxed a little bit. With video games, you're by yourself. You're not with a cast. So, and also she was such a different character than I was used to playing, because I was used to playing nice, kind Diana, compassionate Diana. And then Injustice, not as much. So it was definitely a transition. I made them promise me that at some point in my career, they would give me a nice Diana that I got to play, the Injustice people. But, you know, anytime you get to work, first of all, is a good thing. And anytime I get to voice her in any project, you know, I just see it as a gift. So there was some, you know, I had to make some adjustments, put it that way. But, you know, it's all good. As far as I'm concerned, as an actor, it's all good.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Cheers. And do we have any other questions on the floor? Yeah, come on. Yeah, just come around here. Yeah, just this way here. Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, Susan.
Hi.
Another Paddy hat.
Oh,
so
very handsome. Very handsome.
Uniform. let's say I have first an observation and then a question.
Sure.
Colleague before me, we are actually working on the game together, developing, and since we strongly believe in power equality, we said like we want a female character. All right, so there will be a male and a female, but we don't know much how we should animate, let's say, girls and women fighting. So Injustice League game was actually, and still is, quite a lot of references that we are looking at. We will not brutally copy it, but it's definitely an inspiration to see how to move in the right way. But my question actually is more with the voice acting. You said that you had some guidelines how the voice should be, princess and a warrior coming together at the same time. When you were going for the audition, did you have several like voices in your arsenal of weapons, let's say, that you will use, or you just went with one?
I just went with one. I think what I don't remember this exactly, but what I probably heard from Andrea was to lower the pitch a little bit. So it was a little bit deeper in my register. You know, Batman, meet me at the Watchtower. So it was a little bit deeper, but in many scenes when I'm just talking, it was somewhat my speaking voice. I mean, it's not like you're hearing me today and you're like, wow, I don't even hear Wonder Woman. I mean, you can hear it there, but maybe there's a little bit more polish because of the princess quality, a little bit more formality, and then the deeper register for the warrior piece. But no, I didn't go in with like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to have all these different, if they had told me, if they had directed me that way, then certainly I would have had to do it on the fly. Yikes. But I didn't have to. I luckily enough, they found something in this voice, my speaking voice, that they could mold into what they wanted.
Cool. And one more, if you don't mind.
Of course, that's what I'm here for.
Do you remember maybe the situation or a moment when you said to yourself, yes, this is the voice I'm going with? Or is it like you were actually working, or you were walking in the park, or do you remember how that happened?
I think it evolved, you know, and I think it's not just the voice. I think that, I think it's the confidence, you know, that you develop over time. You know, when I first started, it was very intimidating walking into that room with all these big, you know, heavy hitters, especially somebody like Kevin, who had already done Batman the Animated Series, and Andrea and Bruce Timm. You know, you knew the legend before you walked into the room. So I think the voice was found over time. And I think, truthfully, I think that it was found as I built my confidence playing the character and feeling like, you know, I was connecting to her. Eventually that happened, especially when I had scenes with Hippolyta early on, because the mother-daughter stuff really grounded me. I'm a daughter, you know, and I responded to those scenes so greatly. So I think those helped a lot. Rather than the tough superhero scenes, I think the more human scenes helped me find that voice.
Excellent.
And my comfort level.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions in the floor? Everyone gone all shy now because this is a con. No open bar this con, you know. Otherwise, you know, that's the Irish. Unless there's a pint in our hands, we're not so chatty.
What about your friend?
Go on, Anto. Go on. Go on and say hi at least.
He doesn't even.
Yeah, he's going to do it. Go on, Anto. Oh, here he is. Get ready. Okay.
Sorry, you put me on the spot here. Hello. I think you kind of answered a few of the questions there already. Just and to me, I think you are the definitive Wonder Woman there. Now, in all fairness, even listening to your voice, but I was actually going to say, I think you kind of brushed on it there. Like, you know, in the TV show Wonder Woman, she basically was the boss to me. I knew she commanded the whole team. You know, it wasn't Batman. I think she kind of stepped in and put them in line. I was just wondering, in real life, did you have that kind of atmosphere in the room? Did you take over all, you know, would you tell the guys what to do, you know, put them in their place, or was there a bit of back and forth with a drama there, you know?
You know, I think I was like I just referenced in the last question, I was too nervous in the beginning, you know, to take take charge of anything. I had never, I had been on animated shows before, but never as a series regular, never as one of the stars of the show. And so it took me a really long time not, to stop pinching myself every time I walked into that room and saw all these people that were extraordinary.
A lot of personalities,
and Michael Rosenbaum, you try getting a word in edgewise when he's in the room. I mean, he was Flash, he was Flash, and Carl was, quiet off to the side like Jean, and Phil was, studying comics on the floor with an open comic book. That was his passion. So no, I was not too bossy.
Sorry.
But it's a little hard to feel bossy when Andrea Romano and Bruce Timm are right there. You're just more like this, okay, tell me what to do and I'll do it. Yeah. I think as I got more confident, maybe a little bit, you'd have to ask my fellow Justice Leaguers what they experienced.
Get them all over. We'll do a cross reference on that. We get them all over. Bring them all over here to us too.
Oh, I think that would be a dream for all of us, truly.
Okay, yep. I'll put you back to Owen because he put me on the spot there. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Let the record show that if no one finds me again after this, Anto was responsible, okay? Just before we start, I think we have to start bringing things to a close. We've gone over the half hour mark, but just before, I just want to move on to like some of your other projects as well, like Masters of the Universe Revelation, and announcing season 2. So I don't know if you can say, maybe you can't say anything if you'll be back or anything. Is that no, don't no.
You know what? I haven't been told one way or the other, so okay. I think I'll err on the safe side and say, stay tuned. Stay tuned. Exactly. I think that's the safest answer. But that, it's funny because I think Kevin, I met Kevin in a green room at a convention, and he was there, and everyone was, just swarming around him. And I just thought, oh, should I introduce myself? Should I say hello? And I did eventually. And I said my name, told him who I was. And he's like, hello, you're Wonder Woman. I've seen every episode of the Justice League. I know who you are. And then shortly after that, I got a call, to be in the show. So I'm not sure if my bravery had anything to do with that, or my brazenness had anything to do with it. But it was a lovely connection because he was so familiar with the show. So that that's always a plus when the director knows your work.
No, he does seem to be very sincere, that if he's a fan of something, he seems to really connect, and he's like us. I'm a fan, and it's a privilege then to work with, the people who's familiar material he's familiar with. So yeah, absolutely.
He's wonderful. He's wonderful. He's such a, of course everyone says this one's wonderful, that one's wonderful. Mm-hmm. But he's like your biggest cheerleader. And I'm always nervous, always, always, always. It always gives me butterflies when I go to a session for and he's just there, looking at you, supporting you. He's got your back. And he tries to put you at ease. And, he's such a loyal guy. If he's in your corner, he's in your corner, and you feel it. And it's been a joy working with him and playing that character, that was such a gift, playing the sorceress. I loved it. I loved every word of it.
Yeah, I was like, I knew He-Man periphery in the show, yeah. But I think it was more, I have an older brother. I think He-Man was more for him than it was for me. But then when the show came out, like, it had me hooked, because it was like to take a concept and add to the mythology. And my brother has a son who's turning 4 in April, and it's interesting because with a show, that's the gift to it was, again, going back to Justice League, it didn't talk down, so it's something that like father and son can watch, parents and children. That's always wonderful. And I think animation's kind of common ground, because you have like other shows like Simpsons and such as well, that's like generational, and that's it's we sometimes forget about the simple pleasure of, as a family or as a friend, of sitting down and enjoying a show. And
and as a parent, you want to be able to not get bored out of your head, by the kids show, right? So the fact that the parents can enjoy it, the kids can enjoy it, that it speaks to both the generations. That's the writers, doing what they do.
Yeah. Awesome. But listen, again, it's the writers bring the stories, but again, also the animators visualize, but the actors also, they give soul to it all as well, and that's, again, you and your colleagues, definitely it resonates with us. I think it's a mosaic, many parts for the same complete picture. So I just, final call now, okay, to make sure no one coming up to me upset after this. Anto, please, please, it's okay. But listen, thanks so much, everyone, for coming along today and for asking such great questions. And thank you, Susan, as well, for coming along, participating in this. We really do appreciate it. And all I can say is we really look forward to hopefully seeing you over here in person in a future show. So thank you.
My pleasure. It made me giddy when you reached out because, Dublin Comic Con, it's on my bucket list. Oh, so it made me very happy. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thank you. And Toxin?
Next up is Jess Nesling, who's known for great voiceover work on games like Warhammer 40,000 and Paul Dude's Deadly Lunch Break. She's also on camera in things like The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard. So great conversation with Eoin and Jess Nesling next on Word Balloon.
Super. Okay, so welcome, Jess, to Dublin Comic Con. Welcome virtually to March 2023. Thank you for joining us live today in the Convention Centre, Dublin. So today's topic is mainly just discussing, we're here with Pulse College Games and Animation Campus based in Dublin, Ireland. And our main focus is towards those who are looking to pursue working in the industry in many different forms, from narrative, character design, animation, and of course you bring a unique facet to it because you have experience in the realm of voiceover and motion capture as well. So many of us are aware, well, what this is, but what actually goes into it from that point of view is something we like to discuss a little bit more. So just to begin, Jess, what's your background? So how did you break into the industry? What did you study? Was this the original, roadmap plan that you go to college and then go into? Or was it a different story that unfolded?
So I am originally from Swansea in South Wales, and I went to school there, went to lovely comprehensive, same as Russell T Davies, who brought back Doctor Who. And I was actually quite a shy child. I was, just did very academic, but the idea of doing drama terrified me. And then this film came out called Ice Age, and you know the story, Eoin, but I absolutely loved it. I was in, I think, year 8 or year 9 at the time. And I got the special DVD that showed them behind the scenes in the booth. And I just had this absolute epiphany of, oh my gosh, that's a job. That is a job that I could do. And so I looked into it, started researching it, and it sort of seemed that the standard route would be drama school and you become an actor to become a voice actor. And I know that's not everyone's route, but I thought, okay, let's give this a go. And so I suddenly told my parents in sixth form that I wanted to study drama at university, and they were kind of like, what? This is a bit of a curveball. So we made a pact, and I did French and drama, and I had the best time. I studied theatre in France for a year in Paris, and then came out of university and thought, no, I think this acting thing is maybe something to pursue. So I applied for drama school, was very lucky to get into ALRA in London and studied there. And it just completely cemented my love for voice acting. I loved it so much. I had a fantastic teacher there called Peter Darney, who was gold. And then, so that was, I graduated in 2014, but it took 3 years for me to get my first voice job. It's quite a tough industry to break into. And so it was with, it was a running app called Zombies Run with 6 to Start. And it was one of the most fun experiences I've ever had working. And then it kind of just snowballed from there. And I've gone from playing, theatre-wise, I've done a lot of Shakespeare, a lot of outdoor theatre. I've just come off the back of a year-long tour of the UK and Ireland with Gangster Granny. But yeah, with the voice side, it sort of snowballed, and I went from playing sort of background characters, NPCs, to getting playable characters and having a lovely narrative to play with. So yeah, it's and here we are.
And full disclaimer, I know nothing that goes into acting, but one thing I do hear is about acting being kind of like, what is it? 50% of acting is reacting or something like that. I know nothing along those lines, but when you're doing voiceover work, then I know some folks do it in a sound booth, so you might not actually meet your fellow actors. Now, in animation, sometimes the preferred method is to record audio first, because the animators then can take reference from the actors and it's easier for the dub. But a lot of animation now is the dialogue's recorded first and then animated afterwards. For yourself, you mentioned you have experience like in theatre performance and live performance, but you also do it for games as well. So how does that translate then? What's the translation of that into like from stage to live performance to recording? Was that a difficult transition for you to make, or is it just more use of the imagination, I suppose?
Definitely a lot more use of the imagination, and also a lot less rehearsal time. So as I'm sure you can appreciate, a lot of the time the scripts are sort of still in development whilst you're recording. So you will quite often get the script when you get into the booth. And obviously with theatre, you have maybe 3, I think the National Theatre, they have a fantastic like 2-month rehearsal period to kind of get into character, to find, to explore, to physicalize and work through and work with others and bounce off them. But when you're most of the time when you're doing voice work, it is just you, and you've suddenly you've got a director the other side of the screen and a technician, and they're just kind of explaining the world, and they'll give you, and often because of NDAs, you don't even know what game it is. So you're just kind of like, cool, okay, love the concept. And they'll just talk you through what your character's motivations are. So it's kind of, you fast forward that rehearsal period into a very short summary, and then you've got to just give the same amount of performance, like there and then. And so one of my first voiceover jobs, I was playing multiple non-playable characters with a fab company called Linja Sound, and the client didn't quite know what voices they wanted. So I was then pinging around the UK. I was aging down and up and all this kind of stuff. And it really, at first I was like, oh my gosh, how far can I go? What can I do? And now I just kind of go like, how wild do you want me to go with this? And I'll just play around and I'll flip between accents and worlds. And that gave such a solid foundation. I mean, for me, theatre gave such a great foundation for voice work. And it's been mentioned by a few directors as well, that they love working with theatre performers because they've got the stamina. Like for Dark Tide, there was a lot of shouting, an awful lot of shouting. And they're really good. They look after your voice, but it's very much, you have to support, you have to project, you have to be able to sustain that. The longest session I did was 3 hours of army barks. So the transition from theatre, having that vocal warm up under my belt, having that, I've got a bit of a reputation as having lungs of leather because I've shouted into fields with outdoor theatre for so many years. So that transition has really helped, but it was a bit jarring not having a rehearsal, having this summary of the world and the character, and then going, right, cool, here we go. And it's like, oh my gosh, wow, we're away. But then I think, especially with the characters that you have more than one session with, you kind of grow with the recordings, you grow with each session, and you kind of develop more nuance. And I feel that the more you have that opportunity to do that in the booth, the quicker it just becomes snappier. You kind of go, okay, yes, this is the world, this is it, da da da. And it just becomes easier. And if you're working with a great team, great directors, that just cherry on the cake.
Have you ever had that experience where you've worked on a project, but again, you haven't been in the same room with your fellow actors, and then later you meet them and you're like, hey, we actually worked together on a project? Does that ever happen where you're just like, oh, you've worked with someone, but you haven't met them yet? It's kind of crazy how that can happen in the pipeline of production.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it's amazing how you kind of you can be crossing paths with someone coming in and out of the studio, and you don't know, they could be someone that you're hearing the voice for in the booth sort of, 5 minutes later, and you have no idea. It's so strange. And like, one of the things that I do love about acting is the collaboration and working with people. And it can feel a little bit lonely, but sometimes you are sort of lucky to get if someone's recorded before you, then you get their voice coming through the cans, so you can sort of bounce off that a bit. But yeah, there was actually a guy, I was in a studio doing a mocap job that I can't talk about yet. And this chap was saying it was his first session there. And, I was chatting to him for a bit whilst he was getting suited up. And it is an experience getting into a mocap suit. And he was saying, this is new. And so we were having a lovely chat. And then he was leaving a studio a few days later as I was walking in. And I went, Ben? And he didn't recognize me out of the suit. And I don't know if I should be flattered or not. But it turns out we were then working on the same project, and it was his voice coming through my ears as I went into that next session. So, it's such a strange world, and I love it.
It's often like what they say, it's a small industry, isn't it? Everyone gets to know.
Absolutely. Yeah. There was another game that I did, and the voice came through, G2 Fighter, which came out a few years ago. And a voice came through. I was like, why do I know that voice? And it was Doug Cockle, who voiced The Witcher. And I was like, oh my gosh, do I get to meet him? No, I did not get to meet him at all. But yeah, it was just like this. It's sort of here you get to meet them.
That's always amazing when, I have a friend as well who works in industry, and it's the same with the NDA. It's they work on this major project, and I can see them bursting to talk about it. And then so I was like, they have to wait until, I don't know if it's the same for the games industry, but usually when a trailer is released is usually when they can finally talk about it, but they can't breathe a word until then.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's normally the case, but there's a game that I'm part of that's meant to be coming out this summer. And they're very tight. They're like, even though the trailers are out, it's like, no one say that they're like, the newer characters don't say that you're involved. And it's just like, oh, I really want this. It was one of my favorite experiences, and I'm bursting to talk, but got to respect the NDA.
For contracts like NDAs and such, what experience do you have? Is there someone to like talk you through that? Do you have like a solicitor to read through? Because I'm just imagining, as a total novice to it all myself, suddenly I'm focused on trying to get a job. Then when I get it, I'm suddenly presented with this paperwork. And then like, what do you look for in it? Like, is there something that you've learned in time to be savvy around, like, oh, this is what this point means, this is what to look for here? Or do they talk you through that? Or do you just learn that as through experience, as you get a few jobs under your belt, you just learn as you progress?
A little of column A, a little of column B. I mean, I'm very lucky that I've got a voice agent who is happy to kind of talk through if I've got any questions or if something isn't clear. But generally, NDAs are quite standard. So the first time I sat there and I sat with a cup of tea and I just read through the first NDA I had through. I was like, right, okay, clause 13.7, okay, 17, okay. And I was just like, right, okay. And now it's kind of, you're used to the standard, the sort of the norm. So anything different sort of pops out to you. But yeah, I mean, I'm not even sure how much I'm allowed to say about what's on an NDA, but
yeah. What we do is we say nothing. We'll say nothing. That's the safest bet.
It is a very sort of fascinating thing, because again, like theatre, you just don't have it, and that is my other main source of income. So yeah, it's a very different process, and especially when it's like a AAA game, there's a lot more to consider and a lot more to sort of just have it at the front of your mind, and just like, you can't say this and wait and do it. Yeah.
It's always interesting from teaching animation students. I teach modules like business and entrepreneurship and brand and marketing, but we're teaching them subjects elements in the module, I should say, like cash flow, because, they need to learn how to balance the books. And then they might think, well, I'm going to be an animator, but then they might lead a project one day. And these are kind of like the auxiliary skills you pick up. That's why, when you're studying at third level, why the essays are still important, and, the academic reading and writing, because whether you care for it or not, it will find its way back into your career. We have a couple of game devs present in the room as well. So they'll probably, and we'll go to Q&A in just a moment, but they'll probably be interested in, is there any tips from the perspective of you, the performer, when it comes into, delivering a performance, or what you look for in the game? Is there anything that you've seen? What sings to you like a game? Like, were you much of a game player yourself, first of all, before you got into VR? Like, did you play video games much, or even board games?
Well, I've actually just bought a PS5. The last console I had was PS1. So I played like the proper old school, like Rayman and Tomb Raider and that sort of stuff way back when. But I've just started playing God of War, and even just getting used to the controller, it's so different. I was like, oh my gosh, this is fascinating. So I kind of slip back into gaming because I'm in the world, and I want to honor the fact that I'm working in this industry, and I love researching, and there was one day I sort of started at 11:30, and I looked at my phone and it was like 3:15, and I was like, how has the time flown? So I think, if in terms of narrative, something that can suck you in to the point of losing time is is brilliant. I think having a clear narrative structure, characters who have great motivation and who are exciting. And these are probably just me, but like for female characters, to describe a character as strong, for a man, it's normally about physical strength, but for women, it's normally about their resilience. And I just feel play with, think of other adjectives for female characters. That's something that's like, it just comes up, get time and again. She's strong. I'm like, cool. What else is she? Tell me more. Give me more depth. What else is she? Is she flawed? Is she like a rule breaker? Like what? Tell me more. Like, I think and it is definitely getting better, but it's just something like a buzzword that comes up again and again. I'm like, cool. What else is she?
No, that's a fair point, absolutely. And I just want to circle back around. Then I want to talk about other facets of your career as well. There's maybe some about your writing and theatre work as well before we throw open the Q&A. But just before we move on from the VO work and mocap work, you just mentioned about having an agent, that you're lucky to have one. And I know this, I'm more familiar with from a publishing point of view, but that can be tough, that trying to, find an agent. And what goes into that? What you expected from a portfolio point of view? Or is there a portfolio, a show reel? Like what goes into it if someone here has aspirations to go out and seek an agent? Like, what steps do you recommend that they, consider?
So I actually got my first voice agent in lockdown. So that's fairly recently. And it was because I built a booth in my garden with my partner. And because of lockdown, everyone was in isolation. So having a home studio was all the rage. And so I managed to get a very, very good agent. And that opened the door to a whole new world of voice work for me. Before that, I'd done a lot of indie stuff. And what's great, though, I did a lot of work with the students in training at places like NFTS, Met Film School. And one of their projects, what's it called? Covert Operation, COVRT Operation, got nominated for a student BAFTA in games. And it really was fantastic to work on that. It was absolutely brilliant. But yeah, it's just kind of before, to get an agent, you kind of got to have either profile as an actress or actor, or credits under your belt. And it's kind of like the sort of chicken and egg. If I don't have an agent, can I get credits? And you absolutely can. There are absolutely great opportunities. I did a lot of sort of smaller games, like the Zombies Run one. That was through another website, this website called Mandy.com. I think it's called Mandy now. No, Casting Call Pro, and it's now called Mandy. And so you don't have to have an agent to apply for that sort of level. And then building up that experience, I thought, this is definitely something I want to do. So I got some reels made. And the standard industry expectation is a commercial reel and a narrative reel. That was a few years ago. Now it's animation reels, gaming reels, like audiobook reel, like da-da-da. And so you can really sort of specialize in what you want to do. And so I got a gaming reel made, which piqued the interest of my agent, who saw, home studio, and she said, "Oh, okay, this is," and so it's kind of, the expectation is that you have credits before you join an agency. Normally, if you're, I don't know, Tom Hiddleston or, I don't know, Michaela Cole, you'll be fine.
I think that's a good point as well. Where you mentioned like it was a student BAFTA nominated project. That's why it's good we always encourage our students the extracurricular activities. We do like host the Global Game Jam is one of the events that we host and such here. And that's good because even if it's not going to be your commercial breakout, it's sufficient material for the portfolio to make, the potential agents or future employers aware of the work that you have as well. So it's great to hear. I'm going to use this as a point when I'm encouraging my students to participate in extracurricular events, and I'm like, see, the system works. And I just want to, just one last quick question, and then I'll just move on to just other facets of your career as well. But you just mentioned about your home recording booth that you set up. Do you think now there's an expectation post-COVID that if you're going to embark on a career in VO work, that they expect perhaps that you're set up to record from home and record remotely? Do you feel a kind of shift towards that, expectancy, or is everything more or less, it could be split or back in the studio?
I think it's split now. Obviously, during COVID and even sort of the few months after the world was opening up again, the expectation was a home recording studio, high-tech, high-standard equipment. And there were situations where companies would send out equipment for people to set up at home so that they, could still record. But I think now it's interesting because with the acting side, self-tapes are still huge for auditions. And so normally first round, you'd be in the room, but now it's kind of second round and sometimes even, final stages, that's when you get into the room. But I think with recording, just because if you've got however many people, say 30 people on a project, and they've all got slightly different setups, it's a nightmare for the tech team to match up all the different audio and get the levels right and everything. So having that consistency from the tech side is important, but also, I think having people in the room and having the director right there, it's quite helpful. Although one thing I have noticed is directors and movement directors tend to be working more remotely than the performers now because they're like, I can work from home. That's great. And so it's kind of flipped.
Okay, interesting. So that's one I didn't expect. Okay, so they work remotely now. And so I just want to move on and talk about some other projects you're involved in. I'll let you lead the way in this one because I don't want to put you on the spot for anything that you can't, I don't want to talk about, but I'm just aware that you also, as well as being a performer, are developing writing projects for performance as well. I was just wondering if you're at liberty to share some of the projects that you have in development, your personal projects.
Absolutely. So I am currently, as you know, Owen, writing a play about the political prisoners in Kilmainham jail from the 1920s. I've got Irish heritage, and a family friend from Kilkenny very kindly gave me some letters written to his ancestor who was a political prisoner there. And it's been something I've been so keen to make sure it's as sort of historically accurate as possible. So I've done a lot of research. Brian, one of the curators at Kilmainham, has very, very kindly given me a private tour for I think it was 2.5 hours behind the scenes at Kilmainham, seeing all the graffiti that's still there, all the different spaces that are referred to in these letters. So it was incredible. And thanks to funding, I've been able to do some research and development sessions, which are workshops with performers using the letters as impetus. And so, it's going to have its first iteration in the summer, which is the 100-year anniversary since the letters were written, it feels pretty special. I'm about a third of the way through, but because it's such a big cast and I'm still determined to make it a big cast, it's quite tricky in terms of staging, in terms of making sure people have fair like dialogue and, you know, that kind of thing. So I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and I will get there, but yeah, I'm hoping to do a few more R&D sessions, research and development sessions in April. And then, yeah, we'll have it on in July, and hopefully, Eoin, you will be able to come over and see it.
Absolutely, I've been really looking forward to the project, and very excited to see what comes of it as well. And just having the experience of, you know, being a performer and now writing, are you drawing much upon your experience as a performer? Does that inform your writing? If so, what are the elements? Has it been that perhaps when you read a script you went, oh, I wish it was like this way when you perform it? Like what has it been? What's the influence been?
It's so also like part of my writing story is when I first moved to London and I was a poor teenager, I used to review theatre as a kind of way of seeing more theatre. And I feel like that side of it, as well as my career, has really helped me to realize what I enjoy about theatre and what I don't enjoy about writing. And like, you know, how different characters, like how they interact with each other, what their motivation is. I think that's a really like key point for me, because if you've just got a character who is basically there to help your plot, it just feels a bit, ooh. And I just want to make sure everyone, like, you know, all characters have their purpose. Another thing, I've mentioned Michaela Cole already, but something that I love about her, just as a little sort of side quest, she will give every single character in her shows a name. Even if it's like bartender who has one line, they will have a name, because it's just about kind of giving the character and the performer that kudos. And it's like, you are a relevant part of this world. You're not just sort of a piece that we need. It's, you know, to just further the story. And so I just think that's really key. I'm trying to think what else. I think reading scripts, you see what makes you go, this is exciting. This is different. This is, you know, oh, I love the way that this has happened. And oh, I didn't see this coming. And, you know, that kind of thing. And the same with TV. Like there's some great like TV and film out at the moment. And it's sort of seeing how the narrative flows, how like the beats in the story are clear, that kind of thing. It's all fed into me wanting to go, yeah, I want to give writing a go. And you know, my first full length play, let's see if I can incorporate those aspects I've learned along the road.
Awesome. Can't wait for it. Okay, so I've been going on quite a bit here, and we're just nearly closing in on the 30-minute mark. So before we wrap up, are there any questions from the floor that anyone wants to offer up? Yeah, go ahead.
Just speak.
Yeah, if you want to come up and speak, yeah. Actually, no, you might have to come up closer to the mic. So if you want to come up, sorry about this, our microphone system is a bit crazy. If you come up to about here, just here, yeah. And if you say, hopefully, Jess, yeah, come a little bit closer, yeah, and go ahead, yeah.
Hiya, how are you doing?
Hi, good. How are you doing?
Very good. I have maybe a couple of questions, but let's start with the one that are more relevant, let's say, for me and my friend that are also here. You said that you've done a lot of indie games, the voice acting for indie games. And besides, we understand the experience that it was pretty cool. Did you play any of them yourself?
No, I haven't. That's why I've just moved into a new flat, and so I've got a console so that I can actually start to play them. Because I really, like, as I said, I love being in this world, and it's interesting to see the end result of all the hard work that everyone's put in.
Cool, no problem. My other question is then, that even though you didn't play it, but you were a part of it, do you think that, and I guess you will agree, the live voice acting in a game will bring the quality of the game much higher than just making the effects? Okay, there are several things, like if you're doing with the indie developers, they usually don't have the money and they go for the cheapest option. But I guess you would agree that it brings up the quality of the game itself when it's somebody designed by the professional voice actor than just us looking online for free sounds.
I think so, yeah. And I think what can be done, which helps sort of everyone involved, is if you target like drama schools, because it's people who are learning their craft as well as, you know, as well as the indie games. It's like, you know, you are kind of getting people who are still good quality and who have an understanding of how to use their voice and how to sort of switch emotional gears very, very easily. So it's not just kind of, I've seen a lot of social media shout outs for people, and it's like, do you know what, that you can get raw talent. And I've got a lot of friends who didn't train, who, you know, they don't do acting, they just do voice work, and they are phenomenal. They are really, really talented. So I think it's kind of, I would never say like rule out people who haven't trained. I would never say that at all. But in terms of, you know, if you know that, if I don't actually know the drama school system in Ireland, but if you've got that resource, then absolutely tap into it. And, you know, if people are wanting to get into voice work and are performing and haven't yet broken in, like, indie games is such a great place, because you are going to get talent. You are going to get people who are excited to work on the project and who are going to give it their all. And so it becomes a much more exciting collaboration. It's not just about sort of the talent in front of the microphone, it's who you're working with, and do you enjoy working with them? Are they easy to direct? Do they understand? Are they bringing something to the table? So I think, yeah, there are lots of elements to consider with that one. Sorry, quite a long-winded answer. I hope it's helpful.
No, it's good. And I guess you would recommend it to them. Definitely. Can I ask one more?
Yeah, sure, go ahead. Yeah.
The reason why I'm asking all of this is because I had the chance to actually meet one actor that is really famous here in Ireland, and then we spoke a little bit about games and, you know, voice acting, and I just out of curiosity asked him, like, would you like to work a little bit with us, like to do something? And I did send him like a little fragile, just to do something to see if we test it, if it's working. It's not, it's quite a work anyway. But I sent him some email, and then I met him again, and I asked him, like, did you take a look? And he said, yes, I'm working on it, and that's all cool. But I asked him, like, but are you bored? Do you like this, you know, like as a thing? Because I don't know, we don't know each other that well. And he told me, like, man, I'm actually very happy that you sent me this, because this is part of my career that I was not actually developing that much, and I always wanted to, but, you know, there was no like opportunity. So when it comes to that, I'm actually curious, when you're not working on the projects, but you're working on yourself as a practicing, I guess it takes a lot of practice. Like, what is the standard procedure for you? Like, you warm up? Do you copy somebody else's voice? You do yours? You do a combination of it? Like, how your working day looks like when you're working on training yourself or keeping the shape of your voice, which I guess it has to be done.
So for me, I actually had a very interesting chat with a couple of other voice artists just yesterday, and I was saying how I like warm up, and especially with things like Warhammer, where you are just shouting like, "Ah, plague, oh, great, ah," all this kind of stuff. To sustain that, you have to look after your voice. And for me, it's my career. So I'm very keen to warm up whenever I have, especially when I've got a vocally heavy session. I know other actresses in theatre and performers, but there's one person I've got in mind, Charlotte Palmer, who, if you ever get the chance to work with her, she's an actress over here in Britain. Absolutely fantastic. She's amazing. But, you know, I did an outdoor tour with her. We were all there projecting, testing, making sure that, especially in the different spaces, that we could be heard. Her warm-up was genuinely this. She'd sit, she'd put her makeup on, she'd get into costume, and she'd go, right, everyone, have a great show. That was her. And I was like, my God. And you could hear her clear as a bell across a field. Like, she was incredible. So it kind of depends, you know, what you've got to work with. But for me, I warm up. In terms of other skills, I love learning accents. I use phonetics a lot. I also did a fantastic workshop with a woman called Yvonne Morley, who gave me a toolkit that I use to this day. And it's about the ingredients for a voice, and it's pitch, pace, tone, resonance, and age. And it's, you kind of tap into those different qualities to create an ingredients for a character. And I think when I started out, I was very much, I'd sit there methodically writing it down. Now it's become muscle memory. So if someone says to me, we need this kind of voice, it's like, oh, I've already got that in the bank. Boom, there it is. So it's kind of, I will always like to learn and grow and develop, but like I've got this toolkit that I always refer back to and will use in any situation I'm given. There are situations in games where I've been told, we want this as a voice reference. I also do a lot of translations from Chinese to English. And so they say, we want this voice quality, but with your accent. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool, interesting. And so it's then being able to be elastic with that as well, and not just my idea of a character. It's someone else's idea that I've got to honor. So it's having that toolkit there that lovely Yvonne gave me, to just go, right, okay, so that's the pitch, that's the tone is this is like the pace of it, da 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 da. And so you kind of break it down, and then you have to build it back up into a character rather than being able to hear those cogs, if that makes sense. So yeah, there's a lot of work that goes on.
Sure. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Very welcome.
Super. Thank you. Do we have any other questions on the floor? extensive Q&A there. Awesome. Well, listen, thanks so much again, Jess, for joining us today. Really appreciate it. Hopefully we see you over here in person for a future show. And just before we let you go, where can folks go to find out more about your work and support you in your career?
Oh, wonderful. So I am at Jess Nesling on Instagram and Twitter. Whenever I am allowed to post about games, I will definitely be posting on there. And I've got the games that I am allowed to talk about are available on IMDb, which is sort of 15-year-old Jess is going crazy that she's got an IMDb page. And I think my website is in development at the moment, but I will definitely be getting more up about the work that I'm doing and also my writing. So jessnesling.co.uk is hopefully one to watch.
Awesome. Thank you again. Thanks everyone for asking question and coming along as well. So give up for Jess again. Thank you so much. I'm just going to end the recording here. Thank you.
So that'll do it for today's edition of Word Balloon. We'll have more from Dublin Comic Con from last month with Eoin McCauley on the next episode. I hope you'll join us. Until then, thanks a lot for listening. Word Balloon is a copyright feature of Shaky Productions. Copyright 2023. Stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.